The airship Ithiar, a magnificent, brass-plated leviathan of the skies, cut through the cold, verdigris haze that perpetually choked London in the year 1889. Captain Aurelian Thorne stood rigid on the bridge, his coat woven with oil-impregnated canvas and studded with polished leather, offered little warmth against the gale-force winds whipping around the central observation blister. Beneath them, the endless sprawl of the city was a tapestry of gaslight and grime, the rooftop chimneys breathing plumes of thick black coal smoke into the night. The Ithurier was not carrying frivolous cargo. Beneath the massive hydrogen envelopes lay the Royal Treasury's latest consignment of stabilized iridium, essential for the Crown's new gyro engines. This route was secret, charted only on encrypted chronometers, yet Thorne felt the familiar cold prickle of anticipation, the hunter's instinct, on the back of his neck. Beside him, Engineer Alara adjusted the pressure gauges, her hands covered in oil-stained leather gauntlets. She was the heart of the ship, her silence more comforting than any assurance. "Velocity check," Alara Thorne commanded, his voice muffled slightly by the high collar of his coat. He kept his gaze fixed on the fog-shrouded horizon. "It's holding steady at 30 knots, Captain. But the pressure differential is concerning. We're drawing close to the Tower District's thermal plumes." "Good. We use the plumes lift. Keep us close to the roofline. Visibility is our only defense tonight." That was the trade-off of the London run. Fly low for cover among the towering Gothic architecture and risk the aerial predators, or fly high and risk the Royal Navy's aggressive patrols. Suddenly, a flicker of movement, shaped to angular, too fast and too dark for a commercial dirigible, cut across the peripheral glow of the nearest gas lamp spire. Thorne didn't wait for confirmation. He slammed his fist down on the engagement gong. The chime echoed through the skeletal metal framework of the ship. "Battle stations, prepare the steam cannon," he roared, drawing his customized, gear-driven repeating pistol from its holster. The air pirate, smaller and alarmingly maneuverable, was the Stiletto, commanded by the infamous Silas the Cog Kestrel. Kestrel was a mechanical genius turned sky thief, known for his audacious rooftop assaults. The Stiletto banked sharply, its twin, articulated wings flexing like a predatory bird. It was built for speed, sacrificing heavy armor for agility. "He knows the cargo, Captain," Alara muttered, gripping the helm's brass spokes. "He wouldn't risk this for petty coinage. He risks it because he is arrogant. Stiletto Kestrel believes no one can catch him when he's skimming the chimney pots." The pirate craft dipped violently. Weaving between the monumental clock tower of a city bank and the intricate rudder and spire of a cathedral, Ornt grabbed the sighting mechanism for the heavy steam cannon. The targeting reticle pulsed faintly, waiting for the calculated lead. "Too fast, Aurelian. We'll lose him in the fog." "Not tonight," Thorne whispered, steadying his breath. He aimed not at the ship, but at the narrow gap ahead of the ship's projected trajectory. With a tremendous hiss, the steam cannon roared, launching a heavy iron projectile wrapped in a chain, designed to entangle rotors rather than destroy hulls. The chain missed the Stiletto's main propeller, but it caught the tip of one articulated wing, tearing away a chunk of canvas and wooden framework. The Stiletto shuddered, veering sharply down toward a slate roofline, spitting sparks and a thin, pressurized stream of escaping steam. Kestrel, momentarily stunned, recovered with terrifying speed. He didn't flee. He pressed the attack, capitalizing on the Aethera's slow, cumbersome turn radius. He swung his ship wide, coming up beneath the Aethera's massive belly, using the larger ship as a shield against any further cannon fire. "Going for a grapple," Thorne yelled. "Brace for impact." A pneumatic harpoon gun fired from the Stiletto's upper deck, striking the Aetheria's undercarriage with a sickening, grinding sound of tearing metal. The airship groaned, a deep structural sigh of protest. The harpoon's anchor bit deeply into a main structural girder near the cargo hold. Kestrel was using the rigid tether to haul himself up, utilizing the Aetheria's own momentum against it. It was a calculated, suicidal maneuver. Alara fought the helm, trying to maintain altitude, but the sudden weight shift and the drag from the harpoon line made the airship unstable. "He's boarding, Captain. He's using the line," Alara shouted, pulling her own small personalized wrench from her belt, her weapon of last resort. Thorne activated the security system surrounding the cargo hatch. A searing charge of electricity surged through the hatch's brass frame. He knew Kestrel wouldn't try the hatch. He was too smart. would target the ship's control systems, or the main envelope's vital release valves. Thorn sprinted across the bridge deck, his boots clanging on the metal grating. He gripped his repeating pistol, checking the pressure of the compressed air reservoir. He reached the port side railing just as a dark shape detached from the harpoon line and swung over the railing, landing lightly on the main deck. It was Silas Kestrel. He was lean and quick, wearing a complex rig of articulated armor and a pair of smoky trifocal goggles pushed up onto his brow. In his hand, he carried a wicked, customized Wrencha hybrid tool and weapon, its head spiked with hardened steel teeth. The duel had begun not with cannon fire, but with the brutal intimacy of close-quarters combat high above the sleeping city. Thorn, Kestrel's voice was a harsh rasp, almost lost in the wind. I expected more resistance for such a prize. Kestrel, your reputation precedes your subtlety. Stealing the Queen's iridium is ambitious, even for you. Thorn fired his pistol, the brass casing ejected with a satisfying chime.
Aye!
The shot missed, striking the central mast. Kestrel moved with the unnatural speed of a man who spent his life correcting for gravity. He lunged, swinging the spiked wrench. Thorn ducked under the blow, the wrench whistling just centimeters above his head. He felt the wind of the impact graze his hair. The captain counterattacked, shoving Kestrel hard toward the exposed railing, where the drop was a sheer quarter-mile descent into the fog. Kestrel recovered instantly, planting one boot against the railing and pushing off, utilizing the ship's roll to propel himself back toward Thorn. They exchanged blows. Thorn's heavy, precise swings of his pistol, but met Kestrel's swift, calculated attacks with the multi-tool wrench. The air thrummed with the sounds of metal on metal, the wind, and the relentless churning of the Ethere's engines trying to stabilize. Kestrel managed to land a glancing blow on Thorn's shoulder, the impact rattling the captain's teeth. The armor was strong, but the force was undeniable. Thorn stumbled back, grasping the railing for balance, his vision momentarily blurred by the pain. Kestrel saw his chance and lunged again, not for Thorn, but for the exposed gas line that supplied the bridge's supplementary steam pressure. His spiked wrench struck the line. Steam erupted instantly, a violent, blinding jet that screamed into the night air. The pressure, Lara yelled from the bridge, fighting the controls blindly through the fog of steam. The rupture destabilized the main lift valves. The Ethereer dipped sharply, then lurched violently sideways, throwing both men off their feet. Thorn scrambled backward, pulling himself along the greasy metal deck plates toward the steam cannon mount. Kestrel, however, tumbled toward the railing, grabbing hold just before he slipped over the edge, dangling precariously above the swirling city lights. The sudden sight of the desperate pirate hanging by one hand, his complex mechanical rig clanking, forced Thorn to freeze. He had Kestrel now. One well-aimed shot or a sharp kick to the hand, and the infamous sky thief would plummet to the cobbled streets below. This was the pivotal moment, the culmination of the chase. His duty, his oath, and the Queen's iridium all demanded Kestrel's demise. Yet, looking at the man dangling there, battling the sheer pull of gravity, Thorn saw not a villain, but a fellow airman, pushed to extremes. Kestrel looked up, his face grimacing in the effort, his goggles having slipped down, revealing eyes that were wide with a mix of terror and grim acceptance. "Well, Captain," Kestrel rasped, the word barely audible over the gale. "The Queen demands a clean finish." Thorn raised his repeating pistol, the brass barrel perfectly aligned with Kestrel's exposed face. The action was automatic, trained into him since his academy days. He had been taught that pirates were vermin, necessary casualties in the march of progress and empire. But Kestrel wasn't asking for mercy. He was demanding the expected ruthless efficiency of the crown. Thorn looked past the man, past the stiletto, now swaying dangerously on the harpoon line, and down at the vast, uncaring city. He thought of the weight of the iridium below, the value of the cargo, the praise he would receive for eliminating a major threat. Then he thought of the sheer waste of engineering skill, of audacious spirit, of a life snuffed out over metal. He knew that killing Kestrel would be easy, clean, and justifiable, but it would also be the moral collapse of his own character. Thorn lowered the pistol a fraction, pointing it toward the harpoon line connecting the two airships. "The Ethereer is failing, Kestrel," Thorn stated, his voice resonating with cold, deliberate authority. "You're dragging us both down." Kestrel narrowed his eyes, confused by the delay, suspicious of the unexpected moment of hesitation. "Cut the line, Thorn. It's too strong." "No," the captain said, his finger tightening, not on the trigger, but on the small brass release lever on the side of his pistol. He fired a single shot, not at Kestrel, but at the main pin of the Aetherist steam cannon mount. The compressed air charge hit the pin, shattering the mechanism. The cannon, weighing nearly 2 tons, slid slightly down the tilted deck. The immense, sudden shift in counterweight was exactly what the ship needed to yank itself free from the harpoon's anchoring point. The harpoon line snapped taut, then tore free from the Aetheri's damaged hull with a terrible shriek. Kestrel, still gripping the line, was instantly catapulted away from the airship. Swinging violently back toward his own crippled craft, he slammed hard into the Stiletto's fragile wing structure, the force enough to send the small pirate ship spinning wildly into a rapid descent. Thorn watched as Kestrel, despite the impact, frantically worked his own helm, trying to regain control before the spinning descent became fatal. Ilara appeared beside Thorn, her eyes wide with shock. "Captain, what did you do?" "He's falling, Ilara." "There's a difference," Thorn replied, holstering his pistol. "He failed to take the iridium, and he won't forget the price of that failure." The Aetherier, relieved of the harpoon's drag and slightly rebalanced by the cannon's position change, began to stabilize, albeit sluggishly. They watched the Stiletto disappear into the thick London fog, its emergency signal lamp blinking a sporadic, faint Morse code message. Thorn knew Kestrel would survive. A man like Kestrel always had an emergency parachute or a hidden glider rig. But he also knew Kestrel would understand the message. Thorn had chosen honor over the simple execution of duty. He had extended a life, not out of friendship, but out of a profound respect for skill. "Damage report, engineer," Thorn ordered, walking back toward the helm, his step now firm despite the pain in his shoulder. "Minor hull breach, severe steamline damage near the bridge. We can make it to the Royal Dockyard, but it will be a slow crawl." "Then we crawl, Lara. Set a course for the eastern docks, and prepare a fabricated report that blames the cannon failure on a pre-existing structural." Lara nodded, a tiny, almost imperceptible smile touching the corners of her mouth. She understood the captain's deception. The high-stakes adventure was over. The duel above the London rooftops had ended not in destruction, but in a strange aerial truce. Thorn stood at the helm, looking back at the churning fog where the Stiletto had vanished. He hadn't just saved a life. He had preserved his own moral compass against the rigid, unyielding demands of his profession. He had chosen the complexity of a moral choice over the simplicity of a kill, a choice that would haunt him with bureaucratic inquiries, but not with guilt. The Aetherier climbed slowly, leaving the gaslit streets and their suffocating air behind, ascending toward the clear, cold stars. The journey continued, the airship carrying its precious cargo and its captain carrying the heavy weight of his unique definition of honor. The true treasure he protected that night was not the iridium, but the capacity for mercy. If this high-stakes tale of aerial duels and complex choices resonated with you, show your support. Comment, like, share, and subscribe to Storycraft Studio.